if you had to select between getting a run as Vince's WWF champion or a run as the traveling NWA World's Heavyweight Champion, which one would you select?
Okay. I'm not real sure money wise what the NWA World Champion got,
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to Vince's. But I mean, of course, when Vince first started his big move, he wasn't going national yet. The territory was still the old New York territory when he
Mm-hmm.
started. And obviously that, he expanded. But gosh, it's kind of like that's hard for me because, I remember when Harley Race was the NWA World Champion.
Mm-hmm.
And was going from territory to territory and everything. And I remember him saying to me, he said, buddy, he says, one day this belt's going to be around your waist.
Yeah.
And of course, that never came to pass. And of course, never came to, well, number one, everything in wrestling changed and it all went, like to Vince. Now, then then we do the thing. I have the match with Savage at WrestleMania 4, and he wins and he becomes the champion. And it just seems like the one thing that I never did that I would have loved to have done was be a world champion. But here's the more important thing. You got to look at this from the business aspect of it.
Yes.
It's kind of like, what's going to make you more money? And I reasoned, and again, Pat Patterson is the guy who came to me and said, Ted, he says, originally this is what we're going to do. We're going to do. And he said, and he says, quite frankly, he says, the fans that are watching are going to expect that to happen. They're going to expect you to come out of this thing because we've been pushing you. I mean, prior to WrestleMania 4, the new big heel was me.
Yep.
And they almost expect it to happen. And he says the other thing that's really good to do in wrestling is throw them a curveball, something they never see coming. And that's what we did by having the last two guys in the ring. Instead of it being me and Hogan, it was me and Randy Savage. Hogan got eliminated. And so, Randy wins, he becomes the champion. And then the other thing that Pat reminded me of, he says, here's the other thing, Ted. He says, if you were a baby face, you'd have the belt a long time. He says, but you're not a baby face, you're a heel. Mm-hmm. And because you're a heel and because, it was almost like, and actually Randy was he was a heel too when we had the match, but it's almost like I turned him baby face.
Yep.
If you know what I mean.
Absolutely.
And it's like, so, that's the deal is what are you going to make more money doing or being? Yeah, you might have the belt for a little while and but you're not going to, again, because of the new way that we were looking at wrestling, Vince was trying to draw in not just, he was trying to appeal to children too.
Mm-hmm.
That's why all the action figures and the video games and all that stuff, came along. And so, with that said, he says, bottom line is, where are you going to make more money? And I said, long term, by just being the heel that I am. So,
yep. And it was, to your point, it was a babyface territory, which means historically, the baby faces are the ones who are holding the belt while the heel chases.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, take a look across the WWE for decades. That was their formula. Babyface holds the belt, heel chases it. Heel might get it off them briefly, but it's kind of like a transition period.
Yeah,
Uh,
and that's it. A heel champion is a transitional champion.
yep.
He's going to have it for a short time, but then he's going to drop it to the next baby face. And so, and then again, Pat's, his take on it was right. So now
Well,
back to if I had been, if wrestling hadn't changed the way it did, as an NWA guy, I would certainly want to be the world champion, because back in those days, the world champion was a heel
hmm
in every territory except the one he came from. It's like, okay, Harley Race. Harley Race, basically, his territory was, Kansas and Missouri. The deal. He was a partner with Bob Geigel, and I can't remember the other guy's name.
was it
Uh,
Buck Robley there?
but no,
I don't
uh,
recall.
uh, Pat O'Connor.
Ah,
And so Harley, the only place that Harley was a baby face was in that territory, in the Kansas City territory, which was all of Kansas and not Louisiana, Illinois, St. Louis, Illinois, was part of that territory. So
hmm
those were the only places where he was babyface. Every place else he was a heel, because what's the deal? You groom a new babyface, and that territory's got their hero, and they want to see their hero become champion, and thus that's why the world champion was always a heel, except in his own territory.
it worked better for storytelling. Yeah,
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
to your point, Harley and Flair and Terry Funk, and I assume Jack Briscoe was also
Yeah,
working a heel as a champion. They would go to these smaller territories, and they would maybe not lose to the guy because they don't want to lose their championship, but they'd screw him over in some way, or it'd be a time limit draw or something.
oh yeah, yeah. 99% of the time it was a time limit draw. Yeah,
hmm
but at the end, but it was a time limit draw. But as the match ended, it ended in such a way as the people left going, "Dang, our guy! If he just had 5 more minutes or whatever,
Yep, he would have had him.
he would have had him." So anyway,
One of the guys that Harley helped to make look really good along the way was a guy that I bring up here and just brought up a couple times, Jake Roberts. Jake was working in the Calgary territory with Stu Hart, and Harley Race came to the territory. Jake got to wrestle him. They went for an hour to a time limit and really kind of helped to establish Jake and got him signed by Bill Watts as he was starting the new Mid-South territory.
well, and again, that was about to your point. I was, I started for Bill Watts in Mid South. Jake wasn't, when I first knew Jake, I think they called him Fred Platt.
He was a ref, yeah.
He was a ref, and so, but then when I went back to Amarillo, I was, a baby face, and then Harley came through there. That's where Harley told me. He said, "Ted," he says, "if I have anything to do with it," he says, "one day you're going to be wearing this belt."
Man, it's
You know,
the belt is so prestigious. Even to this day, it's man. Obviously, it doesn't mean quite what it used to. Billy Corgan's running the NWA, and that belt, the 10 pounds of gold, is his featured title. But one of the guys who was training me is also a referee, and he reffed a match for that. And he was saying what an incredible feeling it was just to be the ref and to hold that belt up at the beginning of it.
yeah,
It's the 10 pounds of gold. So
yeah.
it's this really prestigious belt. So all that being said, Ted, if money wasn't a factor, obviously, if you're the WWF champion with Vince's machine, you're going to make a shitload of money as his champion. But if money wasn't a factor, would you rather be the NWA champion or the WWF champion? Which one to you is more prestigious?
Wow. Um, it's hard to just flat out make, because it's like in some ways, it's like we're maybe comparing apples to oranges here because, again, the NWA World Champion was defended in like 5 or 6 or 7, whatever, however many territories in the country that were affiliated with the NWA. You
Hmm.
see, Vern Gagne in Minnesota, they weren't part of the NWA. They were the AWA because Vern Gagne wanted to be the champion of his own territory. uh, and so I don't know. Like back in that day when all of wrestling was regional, I would say absolutely hands down the NWA World Heavyweight title was the most prestigious. But now, you get the WWF, which is now the Worldwide Wrestling Federation or World Wrestling,
Entertainment.
um, and you know the story about that, why they had to change their name.
Because of World Wildlife Fund.
Yeah, the World Wildlife, Federation, or but they were the original WWF. So,
Eh,
well, what a anyway. But you know, once Vince was established nationally, and then obviously internationally, it would be, it'd be great for then I would have loved to have had that belt, because you're the guy.
Nowadays, if you are the WWE champion, like Cody Rhodes is right now, it's essentially saying you're the champion of all of wrestling in the world because we're talking about the biggest wrestling product in the world. So if you're their champion, in theory, you're the champion of
And
professional
so,
wrestling.
is Cody a good guy or a bad guy?
Cody's a good guy. It's a babyface territory.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's they don't like it because it's not so much obviously it is selling tickets, but it's also it's like selling merchandise. It's kind of like you want your champion to be the hero for the little kids so they can go out and buy the action figures and all that stuff. But the flip side of that is I had a lot of action figures too. Why? Because the good guys got to have somebody to wrestle,
Yep.
and that was it. So